I'm Mary Pat Higgins. I'm the president and CEO of the Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum. Thank you all so much for being here. It would have been understandable if you had stayed home in bed with the covers pulled over your heads, because the last few weeks we have been living in terror. We watched in horror as Hamas, a terrorist group governed by hatred of Jews, has committed horrendous attacks with the goal of destroying Israel, the world's only Jewish country. We have been terrorized by the vicious, barbaric murder, rape, torture, and abduction of Israelis on their own soil. We have wept with the families of Israel and around the world who have lost loved ones or are living through unbearable anguish while their loved ones are being held hostage by Hamas. We are appalled that Hamas deliberately uses the citizens of Gaza as pawns in its goals to destroy Israel and murder Jews. We fear for the Israeli soldiers defending their homeland. We grieve for the innocent civilians who are tragically caught up in the devastation of war. We worry about the continued spread and growth of anti-Semitism worldwide as we see it spewed on college campuses, in the media, and in public demonstrations. And we know that a world without a strong Israel is a world unsafe for Jews. We stand with Israel and our Jewish neighbors and friends. Our museum understands the devastating consequences of unchecked anti-Semitism. We know it led to the murder of 6 million Jews as the world largely stood by and watched, or worse still, was complicit. Current events only strengthen our conviction in the importance of our mission to teach the history of the Holocaust and advance human rights, to combat prejudice, hatred, and indifference. We understand that such events can evoke confusion within the community and in the classroom. Thus, we acted quickly to create fact-based educational resources for teachers, counselors, and parents to help them navigate students' questions. Designed to foster informed discussions, our curated lessons cover frequently asked questions and historical context of the Israel-Hamas war, guidance on conducting responsible conversations, and strategies for addressing anti-Semitism. We are pleased to offer these resources at no cost to teachers through our Upstander education database. Our work has never been more important, and we are so grateful that you are all here tonight to stand with us and our mission. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce two of our wonderful co-chairs, Lynn and Gil Friedlander.
Please welcome to the stage Hope for Humanity event co-chairs, Lynn and Gil Friedlander.
Good evening, and welcome to this year's Hope for Humanity dinner. It is my pleasure to welcome you tonight on behalf of our fellow event chairs, Linda and Ken Wimberley, and my husband, Gil. I would like to recognize the members of the honorary committee and the host committee for your dedication and for your inviting so many of your friends and colleagues to be part of this event. And thank you to everyone here for your generous support of this evening, which raises important funding for the museum's many educational initiatives and year-round programming.
Lynn and I have had the privilege to be involved with the museum for many years, and we're more than honored to be a part and we were more than honored to be a part of the capital campaign efforts to make this facility a reality. The museum's mission to teach the history of the Holocaust and advance human rights, to combat prejudice, hatred, and indifference is even more relevant today than it was when the building opened in 2019. When I think about the Holocaust, I think about the time I visited Auschwitz and how after so many years of reading about it, watching documentaries and movies, how I was struck so deeply by one observation I had. The stairs leading down to the gas chambers are made of smooth stone. When I walked down the stairs to get to the chamber, the middle of the stairs was worn down significantly. And I thought to myself, and I've never been able to quite get it out of my head, how many individuals had to walk those steps to their deaths to cause those stairs to be so worn down. This and the brutal attacks on Israel and Ukraine and other human rights crises around the world are why the museum's exhibition and programs continue to be an incredible educational resource for our community and the thousands of students who walk through our doors. Throughout our time, we've seen how the lessons taught by the museum allow every student to walk away understanding the importance of one, standing up for what is right, and defending the defenseless, which is what we refer to as behaving like an upstander, versus the dangers of passive bystander behavior. At a time when many schools are struggling, our collective financial commitment tonight affords the museum the ability to engage students and to provide educators with crucial resources to teach difficult subjects in age-appropriate ways. Thanks to your generous support, the museum will be able to reach more educators and students than ever before. Tonight, we are here to honor a good friend and mentor to me and many others in this community, Larry Schoenbrun. The Hope for Humanity Award pays tribute to an outstanding individual who demonstrates a dedication to the improvement of society and is an embodiment of the museum's mission. As someone who has known Larry for over 50 years, I cannot think of someone more deserving of this award. So, while Larry will tell you I have tried to kill him and other members of his family who are here tonight a number of times while riding mountain bikes in Colorado, we are all glad that he stands with us tonight after his real brush with death last year and his tremendous comeback. I've told some of you this before, but I owe a great deal of gratitude to Larry for my career, which has been great fun and a blessing to my family and me. When my parents were ill and I was trying to return to Dallas from New York, where I started my legal career, it was Larry who got me the interview with the firm that both hired me and allowed me to be successful and became a law firm which, as it grew, changed the nature of the face of the practice of law in Dallas. So thank you again, and Larry, in troubling times like this, both internationally and domestically, we need your calm and reflective leadership, as you do represent a true hope for humanity. Thank all of you again for being with us tonight and for generously supporting the museum's important mission. I would like to personally thank many of my friends, longtime clients, business partners, and my colleagues at Sidley Austin for their support of this event. It means a lot to Larry, as well to Lynn and me. And now, please help us welcome to the stage Rabbi Andrew Paley for this evening's blessing.
Please welcome to the stage Rabbi Andrew Paley for the blessing.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with all of you as we recognize and celebrate our dear friend Larry and his incredible dedication, his love and belief in the value of our Dallas community, our Dallas Jewish community, and especially for his tireless efforts on behalf of the Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum. Larry, as all of you know, and as I have come to know, is truly this hope for humanity, and we are so fortunate to have him and Celia here in Dallas. How poignant it is that we should be gathering, like all of us here tonight, like this, honoring hope for humanity. At a time in our world when hope in humanity appears at a desperately low level. Most acutely, of course, over these past 2 weeks, in this time of great difficulty for the Jewish people and for Israel, our hearts break at the scenes of death and destruction, of worry for those held captive, of sadness about another war we did not want and did not start, and one we pray ends quickly so that we can get on to the business of l'chaim, to life, the life-affirming path that Judaism celebrates and one we want so badly. It feels overwhelming and paralyzing. We as a community are here tonight, however, to say that we will not be paralyzed. We will not succumb to the weight of overwhelming sadness and despair. We are here tonight coming together as a community who shares the belief in the vision of a redeemed time, a time when nations will not lift up sword against each other nor learn war anymore, to redouble our efforts to bring the light of decency and compassion and protection and hope to those people and places that need it so desperately. That's what Larry taught us by his example. I know in my heart, as a student and follower of Larry's, that the dark season we may be experiencing does not have to be a permanent feature of our world. There may be dark moments, but never a dark world. Larry has shown us that despite the despair exploding in our world, despite the tendency to demonize, we will not hate, just the opposite. We will love more courageously and care more deeply, because that is what hoping and praying for humanity is all about. That's what Larry is all about. Our presence here testifies to this ideal, and I look forward to joining with all of you so that we can reignite our hope in each other and our hope for humanity. So if you'll indulge, let's raise our glass for a moment to our dear friend Larry and to the greatest of Jewish dreams and hope, l'chaim, to life. And of course, symbolizing all the many life-affirming gifts we receive through God's love, especially the ones that fill us up. Pass the bread around at your table. Make sure everybody has a little bit, if you haven't done that already. Let's pray together. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. L'chaim.
I hope you've been enjoying dinner and visiting. I would like to extend a sincere thank you to event co-chairs Lynn and Gil Friedlander and Linda and Ken Wimberley for making tonight possible. They, the honorary committee, and the host committee all worked passionately to ensure tonight would be a success, and we couldn't have done it without them. To those of you here with us tonight, I'm very grateful for your generous support of the Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum. Thanks to you, we are able to fulfill our mission. 78 years have passed since the end of the Holocaust, and yet we still find ourselves battling anti-Semitism and hatred. Even before the outbreak of the Israel-Hamas war, the museum has been the target of anti-Semitic acts in the last few months. The Anti-Defamation League recently reported on an alarming trend of growing hate and extremism in Texas. Last year, our state experienced an 89% increase in anti-Semitic incidents from 2021 levels. At a time when ADL tracked the highest ever number of anti-Semitic incidents across our nation, Texas was the state with the 5th highest number. These data points showcase how vital the museum's work is for our city, our state, and our country. But we take hope in that just as hatred is learned, it can be unlearned. This year, we will reach 210,000 people through our powerful exhibitions, engaging community programs, and training. 210,000. And of that 210,000, 120,000 are students. Isn't that amazing? Every day at the museum, tomorrow's leaders arrive with their classmates on school buses. We owe it to them and to our community to teach them to be upstanders instead of bystanders. Through our lessons, the museum highlights upstanders who found the strength to endure the unimaginable and accomplish the extraordinary. By studying the history, students and adults alike learn that the actions of one person can impact the lives of many. Your support makes this work possible and accessible to all. Tonight, we are honoring someone who has been with us every step of the way, Larry Schoenbrun. Larry has served on our board for decades, but I'm particularly thankful that he served on the steering committee that provided overall leadership for the audacious goal to build a new museum. He also served on the exhibition design committee and the campaign committee, and he co-chaired the Cornerstone division, soliciting many of you in the audience. Thank you, Larry. I can't imagine going through the process of building the new museum without Larry, and I know our campaign wouldn't have been so successful without his tireless work. But mostly, I'm thankful for Larry's sage advice and the moral convictions that govern everything he does. If Larry is in favor of something, I always know we're on the right track. He definitely gives me hope for humanity, so I'm thrilled that we're honoring him tonight. I am also constantly thankful for the hope and resilience our Holocaust survivors embody, and know how fortunate we all are to learn from the example they set. Having lived through unimaginable inhumanity, they are beacons of kindness, faith, and strength. Several of our survivors are here with us tonight. Will you please stand or raise your hand so we can celebrate you? I want to thank each of you for inspiring us every day to be upstanders. The Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum would not exist without our survivors' commitment to education and to creating a better world for future generations. We are profoundly grateful for our survivors who are still with us and to those of blessed memory. Now I invite you to turn your attention to the screens for a tribute to them.
Please welcome to the stage Hope for Humanity event co-chairs, Linda and Ken Wimberley.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I have the honor of serving on the museum's board of directors and being a co-chair of this wonderful event, along with my wife, Linda, and Lynn and Gil Friedlander, who you met earlier. We have long been supporters of the museum and are honored to be part of this event honoring our friend, Larry Schoenbrun. Linda and I are fortunate to have known Larry, Celia, and their family for many years. Like many of you, I started my legal career working for and learning from Larry as well. He is one of the most respected lawyers in Texas and beyond. I could easily spend my allotted speech time listing what he's done for the legal profession and as you'll hear later, for our museum and community. But I'll instead focus on what we admire most about Larry, his humility. As an example, when he was asked to serve as honoree for this year's Hope for Humanity dinner, Larry truly worried no one would attend. Instead, this event sold out in record time, and as you can see, there are more than 1,200 of his friends and museum supporters here tonight. If anything, without Larry's decades-long support and leadership of this museum, none of us would be here tonight. Thank you, Larry.
Supporting the museum is more than just a passion for us. It's personal. In tonight's film, we hear from 4 survivors in our local community who were children during the war, who were hidden from persecution from the Nazis by upstanders in their communities. As children, they survived the Holocaust by hiding in different ways at great risk to those who sheltered them, and thanks to the sacrifice of their parents. At the age of about 9, my mother, Inga, was pulled from her school, her friends, her father, and sent into hiding with her mother, herself only about 25 at the time. Escaping Berlin with only a few belongings and fake papers, she and my Oma found refuge with families who hid them and others in farmhouses far from home. My mom still remembers frantic journeys, strapping themselves to the sides and tops of trains using my Oma's belt, ducking as they sped through tunnels. But thanks to the brave upstanders, my mom and grandmother remained protected from the Nazi encroachment. And unlike millions of others who were tragically not so fortunate, she's here with us tonight at 91. I want to make sure you heard at 91. Grateful for every day. Her story and the story of every survivor matters. The museum's work to highlight these often untold stories matters. And as we have all now witnessed the stories from abroad today of innocent children and their families hiding from hate, the museum's work to combat hate matters. It's my honor to introduce the premiere of tonight's feature film produced by the museum, Hidden Children's Secret Sanctuaries. Now we invite you to turn your attention to the screens. Thank you.
As the Nazi war machine moved across Europe at the start of World War II, well over 1 million Jewish children were caught in its wake. Approximately 1.5 million of them perished during the war. Many of those that survived did so by going into hiding with the help of networks of individuals working in conjunction with religious, welfare, and resistance organizations. Some children were able to be hidden with family members. Others were separated from loved ones and had to survive in the care of strangers.
My parents were in hiding in probably an attic. They had an argument, and I didn't quite understand what they were saying. My mother, I remember, broke out in tears. The argument that ensued when they had decided they were going to put my brother and I into hiding.
My mother took what was left of our family from over 20, and we traveled to another village, and we lived there with two families. My mother and I with one, the Haiduk family, and my aunt and uncle and grandmother with another family across the street. On September 9, 1944, we were awakened by loud yelling and screaming, saying, "Run, the Germans are here." My mother threw on whatever clothes we had handy, and she and I managed to escape to the forest outside the village. We were probably there 2 to 3 weeks. I remember eating berries, and I guess whatever else we could find.
I was interned in the Kovno ghetto, which was the Cohen concentration camp in Kaunas, Lithuania. When my parents saw that the elderly and the children were dispensable, they dug a hole under the barbed wire that was surrounding the ghetto where I could crawl through. On the other side of the barbed wire on the day that I escaped was Bronya Budrekaite. She was my father's secretary, and we ran across that bridge of the Limnos River to her apartment where she hid me for a couple of days.
Some hidden children could pass as non-Jews and hide in the open. In these instances, rescuers created a false narrative, often explaining that a child was illegitimate or a relative visiting from the countryside.
We had to change our name and became another person. My mother was Irene Meunier, and I was Gident Meunier. My father was not my father anymore. It was Henri Mando, because if we were arrested together, we were not together. We didn't try to hide. We just lived in the open, but we became somebody else. We were not supposed to be Jewish.
A constant fear hung over hidden children and their protectors. If suspicions arose, both could be reported to authorities with dire consequences. For this reason, hidden children were often moved between alternate locations and different rescuers.
In my mind's eye, I can visualize about 4 or 5 orphanages that I'd been in. One incident that I do remember, I was in a room and I remember that I was told not to remember any names that might have been said or recall what any of these people look like.
Bronya Budrekaite could not keep me. She was putting herself in great danger, and she found another place for me, which was with Natasha Fugalevichute and Natasha Yegorova. I left them because their neighbor was one of Natasha's brothers, and he was a full-fledged Nazi, and I got whooping cough. He knew that his sister didn't have any children, and I was putting them in danger again. So I was sent to the farm of Lida Goluboviena, who was my third rescuer and my main rescuer. And it was a more idyllic life, a more calm life.
Hidden children were sometimes physically concealed, some for only brief periods of time, others for the entirety of the war. They often had to remain silent for long periods of time.
We stayed in Lyon until the end of the war, but I didn't stay with my parents. I went to several little boarding schools because it was not safe for me to be with them. So the Germans started to retaliate, fighting with the resistance. So when my father heard that on the BBC, he wanted me to be out of there, and my mother figured out a way to come and get me. But it was on the same day that 3 German officers decided to come and have dinner with the student. So right away, the headmaster told us,
don't come to the dining room, stay in your room upstairs. My room was right above the dining room. And we sat there, we didn't talk, we didn't think, we were silent for about 3 hours.
One day, my mother saw Peter, the son of the Haiduk family, and she went and spoke to him. After dark, some of them came and brought us back to the village, and in their house, they dug a hole. I would say the hole was maybe 4 by 4, maybe 4 by 5. I know that my mother had a hard time stretching out, and she's not very tall. When they could, once a day, they would bring us some food, usually some cold soup, and sometimes a piece of bread. We passed the time, she told me stories, folk tales, Yiddish, Jewish, and in Slovak. And I can't remember this, but I guess we did a lot of counting. I could count to 10,000, I know, when we were free. There was also soldiers living in the homes of the villagers, including the house we were in. So they lived in one room, the Haiduks in another, and we were in the hole.
Even when hidden successfully, many children suffered the trauma of isolation or separation from loved ones, the effects of which could last for years.
Finally, after the war, we go back home and I have my family. But when I think of Monique and Micheline and the rest of the family, my heart aches. Edith, my best friend, all of them go home as orphans. I'm the only one who is lucky enough to have my parents. I will never forget this because it just feels so unfair.
One of the things that is a landmark with survivors is fear and mistrust. And it comes from the fact that we were never sure why people were trying to kill us. So I was always on guard, always stressed about what should I do or shouldn't I do, or should I just be myself? And being myself was a very difficult thing to do in those times.
We had occasional visitors' day at the various orphanages. It was always extremely difficult because I was all by myself. But one day, I remember that so well. One of the boys pointed me out to his relatives. I think it was his mother. And she looked at me and motioned me over. So I came and she talked with me and she offered me some of the stuff that they were having. They were just having fried green beans. No one had ever done that to me. And to this day, I still remember that day.
I had dreams occasionally of being reunited with my mother. And occasionally, I even thought that I might have had a brother. All those memories kind of left me. From 4.5 years old, you go another year, and before long, your memories vanish. You have to cope with your new environment. So you can't dwell on the old.
Despite how challenging their experiences or personal ordeals may have been, many hidden children feel gratitude to their rescuers and parents for making the sacrifices that allowed them to survive.
I am forever grateful for the Catholic Church and the nuns and priests who risked their lives to save the Jewish children under their care.
I'm thankful. They saved my life. They saved my brother's life.
It takes, I heard, about 12 or so rescuers to save a child. I'm proof that miracles do happen and that there are good people who risk their lives to save somebody else's life, in this case, mine. I'm fully committed to live my life in gratitude now.
And I think often, too, about all the people who helped me during the war.
I will never forget their generosity. I will never forget the courage that they have.
I decided I wanted to find anybody that is still alive from that family that hit us. And one of the things the granddaughter Eva told me, she said, you know, my mother always used to tell me the story about hiding that family. I was young, but I never believed it. I thought she was making it up. My mother always wondered what happened to that little boy. And thanks to the Haiduk family, he had a great life.
What a moving film and inspiring stories. Thank you to Jeanette, Paul, Max, and Roseanne for sharing your experiences with us. This film is just a small depiction of the work the museum does every day in support of its mission, to teach the history of the Holocaust and advance human rights to combat prejudice, hatred, and indifference. While thousands of adults and students visit the museum each year, since this year's dinner highlights horrors faced by the brave children of the Holocaust, tonight we want to emphasize the impact the museum is having on students in our community. This year alone, nearly 120,000 students from all over Texas and surrounding states will visit the museum and participate in educational programs. These students and their teachers learned about some of humanity's most incredible stories of struggle and courage in an age-appropriate way, empowering them to better appreciate and stand against hatred. Just last week, Linda observed students at the museum reading, listening, and learning about the devastating effects of prejudice and the beauty of standing up for others. The museum's work has never been more important than it is today, but this costs money. Of those we serve, more than 70% are students at low-income schools. Your support provides crucial funding for educational programs and resources for these students and their teachers. We cannot thank you enough for joining us and for your generous sponsorships and donations. With your help, we're so pleased that we exceeded our revenue goal for this event, but the need is still great. With that in mind, you'll find a QR code on the last page of your program. On the small tents at your table and on the screens above. We invite you to pull out your phones, scan the code, and consider making a tax-deductible donation. And for those of you who prefer old-fashioned paper donation cards, museum staff will be outside the ballroom at the registration table to help you when you leave tonight. Donations of any size are appreciated. And if you're looking for a very special way to thank your table host tonight, there's perhaps no better way to thank them than by making a donation tonight. And if that's not enough encouragement, I'm excited to announce that through the generosity of an anonymous supporter, your gifts will be matched dollar for dollar up to $25,000, ensuring that your donation will go twice as far. Thank you again so much for generously investing in the mission and work of this incredible organization. I now have the privilege of inviting to the stage Lee Michaels, Board Chair of the Museum.
First of all, you can keep scanning and you don't need to listen to me. Good evening. It is so amazing to look out at all of you who are here tonight as friends and supporters of the museum and our mission. As you know, our goal at the museum is to inspire upstander behavior. We do that by providing fact-based education and engaging programs to empower our community to stand up against anti-Semitism and hatred. And it is more important now than ever. I want to thank all of you here tonight for supporting this critical work. I would also like to thank my fellow board members. It is truly a privilege to serve alongside such an accomplished and passionate group of individuals. And like others before me, I want to make sure we recognize our wonderful co-chairs, Lynn and Gil Friedlander, and Linda and Kim Wimberley. You all, along with the honorary and host committee members, have made this evening a resounding success. Finally, everything that the museum accomplishes each and every day would not be possible without our incredible staff. Your dedication is deeply appreciated by me, by my fellow board members, and by all those here tonight. Thank you. Every year we come together to bestow the Hope for Humanity Award upon an outstanding individual who demonstrates a dedication to the improvement of society and the fulfillment of the museum's mission. Tonight, as you know, we are here to honor the one and only Larry Schoenbrun. Like many of you in the room, I was lucky to work with Larry as a young lawyer over 30 years ago. I have to share my favorite Larry story. I had recently returned to the office after being on maternity leave with my first daughter. I had a closing that morning, and there was a mix-up with childcare. Back then, it was unusual to bring a baby to the office, but I was left with no choice but to quickly stash the baby carrier with my sleeping daughter behind my desk and go into the conference room. About 5 minutes later, and I wish I could mimic Larry's East Texas accent, Larry came into the closing holding the baby carrier. "Look what I found in Lee's office." I, of course, was horrified, and I'm sure turned a brilliant shade of red, but Larry thought it was the funniest thing he had ever seen. With a mischievous grin on his face and a twinkle in his eye, he put me completely at ease, and Kate attended her first and only closing. To me, that epitomizes what Larry's priorities are. He focuses on what is important and doesn't sweat the small stuff and puts everyone in the room at ease at the same time. And his passion for the museum was evident when he reached out to my husband and me when the new museum was being planned and asked us to be part of it. That is the reason I am standing here tonight with all of you, feeling like one of the luckiest people in the world to be involved in this museum. And that is why Larry is the perfect honoree to receive the Hope for Humanity Award. He understands what is important, and he puts his heart and soul into his convictions. The museum is so fortunate to be among the many nonprofit organizations throughout the North Texas community to which Larry devotes his time and advocacy. A passionate defender of human rights, Larry generously dedicates his pro bono legal work to helping those facing persecution and seeking asylum, something he does in loving memory of his grandmother and numerous family members who perished in the Holocaust. And now I want to invite you to turn your attention to the screens for a special tribute to our 2023 Hope for Humanity honoree, Larry Schoenbrun.
Hope for Humanity, take it up.
We will not be over at 9 o'clock because Larry will still be talking.
So they're honoring Dad for this thing? Everybody else said no.
Larry's not here, is he? I didn't bring my checkbook.
The Hope for Humanity sure has fallen off since 2014, and I got the award.
Larry's not here, is he? I hope not, because I haven't returned my pledge card to him yet.
You're honoring Larry. This is really going to go to his head.
I hope you have a lot of film in the camera because this is going to be long and painful.
But seriously, there is nobody more deserving of the Hope for Humanity Award of the Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum than Larry Schoenbrun.
I think Larry's someone who's very respected for his wisdom and judgment. Larry is someone that people can count on.
I would describe Larry as kind and loving, very stubborn.
Smart, he's loyal, he's with you all the time. He's always had concern for others.
Larry is a mensch in all possible ways.
He's generous. He has this very dry wit. He's a wonderful grandfather.
There's nobody that better exemplifies the true meaning of Tikkun Olam than Larry Schoenbrun in this community. It's clear, hands down. Everything that he gets involved in deals with repairing the world.
Well, I'm Larry Schoenbrun. I grew up in Tyler, Texas, born in 1940. My mother is from what's now Hungary. My father from what's now Slovakia. My father came to this country in 1923, and they ultimately moved to Tyler in 1930, and they operated a small ladies' clothing and piece good store.
I guess growing up in Tyler, our parents were very active in the community and leaders of the community. It was a big part of our lives growing up.
When I was growing up, I knew virtually nothing about the Holocaust. My parents really never talked about the Holocaust. I think it was too painful. I did not know when I was growing up that I had lost, the bulk of my family, both on my mother's side and father's side, till many years later.
I think the family experience and his work in the community as an attorney carried him forward to want to do more community work.
I mean, his focus has been on the legal aspect, involvement and Jewish community, but alongside of that, he cares about Dallas.
He has a wide range of interests, including the arts, civic activities, human rights generally, and many worthy causes, and is respected for that.
We are very fortunate to have Larry in our community, inspiring and conspiring to do good work. He makes good things happen for people who desperately need them.
He doesn't talk about all that he does, he just does it because it needs to be done.
I think through Larry's years in Dallas, he's gained such wide respect that if he's involved in a project or organization, it sends a signal to a lot of people that this is a very, very valid cause and adds a lot of credibility.
He sets the standard for giving because he will not ask you until he has made a commitment that he would like you to rise up to.
Larry loves to raise money. He doesn't raise money for something he doesn't strongly believe in.
Larry had my pledge card, and he worked me for a couple of years. Whenever I was working pledge cards, I would tell whoever I was talking to, look, if you don't give to me, your next call is going to be from Larry Schoenbrun. That immediately got a response because they knew what that meant.
Larry Schoenbrun is one of the most successful fundraisers for nonprofits that I know. And in particular with the Holocaust and Human Rights Museum was a major factor in when we made the decision that we needed to move, to expand, and to build a new museum. For a long time, we pined at the idea that eventually we would have a real museum, a museum that could attract school kids from all over the region to come in.
As we started talking about the museum, that we were going to build. We talked about a museum that would focus not only on the Holocaust, but other genocides and human rights in the United States.
Once the museum was up and operating, he said, you know, what's next? And what's next for him was to take the almost college-level course to become a docent at the museum.
Well, the sort of concept of the museum and the goal of the museum is to affect people and get them to join this process of making the world a little better.
As Larry started reducing his practice, coupled with his moral character and his concern for others, he saw where he could apply his legal background to assisting people that were seeking asylum in our country.
Obviously, the fact that my parents were immigrants who really came to this country seeking a better economic life, a better opportunity to work and raise a family. And obviously that resonated with me.
Larry contacted me out of the blue. He had learned that I had set up a pro se asylum clinic, helping folks who don't have lawyers to apply for asylum.
That Dad was helping with immigration was surprising, only that it wasn't his area, but then not only did he get busy with it, but he made sure that people in his firm got busy with it. And I think he started this whole big machine.
Before I knew it, I was giving trainings in his firm for what seemed sometimes like an army of volunteers. Larry doesn't take cases so much as helps people. Again and again, I've seen him work beyond the courtroom.
One of the cases that he's mentioned to me a number of times, a young woman with a toddler at the time, coming from Central America, where the gangs were all over her to get her other children involved.
She had had her arm nearly severed in an attack. She was taken to the hospital and told that she would have to lose her arm, and Larry was as touched by her bravery as I, and took her case. Ultimately, the good guys won. She's here. Larry didn't stop there. He went on to arrange that she should receive a prosthetic limb.
That lady needed legal help, but Larry looked at it as the whole person and looked at what he could do to not only get her asylum in this country, but to gain her physical capabilities back and to where she could take care of her son and really become a functioning citizen in our country.
Larry wants to heal and not just protect.
Larry's interest in history and knowledge of history makes him even more effective than his passion alone would allow. He does not want history to repeat itself, and I think he would fight tooth and nail for it not to, even though we see it happening. That's why he continues to do the work that he does.
You know, Larry Schoenbrun is very conscious of the fact that he's the child of immigrants, that he's the child of parents who came from the old country, as it were. So immigration is something that motivates Larry in a very significant way, a deep and abiding interest in where we came from and why we got here, and our obligation to work hard to make this place better.
Larry truly embodies Tikkun Olam with the things he's done.
Tikkun Olam is a Jewish concept that God created the world, but he didn't finish the project. The role of a member of the Jewish community is to make the world a little bit better, is a concept that has affected me since I was a child.
There's always work to be done to make the world a better place. Larry has a great passion to do that.
He's a doer. He doesn't sit still.
He is all about making this place better, and he doesn't stop doing that.
Hi, my name is Sophie and I'm Larry's granddaughter.
My name's Alec, I'm Larry's grandson.
Hi, I'm Jacob Kaplan, I'm Larry's grandson.
I'm Daniel, and I'm one of the lucky people that get to call Larry Schoenbrun my grandfather.
I wanted to thank you for always being a positive influence in my life. I feel really fortunate to have you as a role model.
I've been able to see his impacts in not only just the Jewish community, but the law community and in my family in general.
You've taught me that no matter what may be going on in your own life, there is always room to help others.
Of all the things he's modeled for us, though, the one thing that stands out to me first and foremost is his humility.
Thank you also for teaching me that the person who makes a difference in humanity is the person who operates with humility. And thank you especially for teaching me that through your own example.
My grandpa has always taught me growing up to treat others kindly and to always follow what you are passionate about.
Congratulations on this tremendous honor. You are so, so deserving of it.
I love you so much, and congratulations on winning this award. I wish I could be there to see it.
Congratulations, Papa. I wish I could be there.
Congratulations. I'm very, very proud of you.
Papa, congratulations. You really deserve this honor. We love you, and we are so proud to call you our grandfather. You're making this world better every day, and with your guidance, hopefully, so will we.
Please welcome to the stage 2023 Hope for Humanity honoree, Larry Schoenbrun.
Larry, I personally want to thank you for encouraging me to get involved with the museum 8 years ago, where I have found my true passion. And I'm sure you're not surprised that it wasn't corporate law. And more importantly, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum, it is my distinct honor and privilege to present you with the 2023 Hope for Humanity Award.
Thank you. I am a 62-year-old widow. I live in Sumbatai, a small town in Hungary near the Austrian border. About 6% of Sumbatai's population is Jewish. It is July 1944. Hungary has joined with Nazi Germany in the war. There have been a number of awful laws passed which make it very difficult to be Jewish. However, I hear from my friends that the Nazis suffered a major defeat in their attack against the Soviet Union and Stalingrad. My friends believe it's the beginning of the end of the Nazi regime and that the war will end soon. I have been ordered to go to the town square with a small suitcase with my important belongings. I have heard terrible rumors about the Nazi treatment of Jews at concentration camps in Poland, but those rumors cannot be true. No one would treat a fellow human being like that. I'm now in the town square. We've been ordered to walk to the train station. We are surrounded by armed guards and vicious dogs. My bag has been taken from me, and I'm being forced into a boxcar with many of my friends and neighbors. There must be more than 100 of us in this car. There's not enough room to sit. We're packed like sardines. The train has started to move. It's hard to breathe in here. I think I may pass out. We have been in this boxcar for 7 days. There's no food or water. 20 or 30 of the people in the boxcar have died. We have now stopped in a huge camp and are being forced out of the boxcar. I've been required to walk by a table with a Nazi officer. He has instructed me to join a line of old men and women and young children. Younger men and women have been instructed to form another line. We are being marched to a contract building, and I have been told to take off our clothes so we can take a shower. We have been forced into a small room with shower heads. There is no water, just an awful gas. This is the story of my grandmother, as I imagined it. She was deported to Auschwitz in July 1944. I hope she died quickly and did not suffer for a long time. She joined more than 40 of my family members and 6 million other Jews and 5 million others who were murdered by the Nazis. The museum is a memorial to them and a beacon of light to teach all of us what can happen when hatred goes rampant and the world does not take action to stop it. I am lucky. My father came to this country in 1923 to join his brother and went back to Hungary in 1930 to marry my mother. If they stayed in Hungary, they would have been deported with my grandmother. As a 4-year-old in 1944, my life expectancy would have been less than 30 minutes in Auschwitz. Instead, I grew up in Tyler, Texas, where my parents had a small women's clothing and piece goods store. It was a very pleasant childhood. It was a white and black community that was totally segregated. I was largely oblivious to the terrible discrimination against the black community. I was more focused on dating my first girlfriend. It was not love at first sight. I did not decide I wanted to marry her until our second date. But even in Tyler, they frown on 14-year-olds getting married. I ultimately went to the University of Texas in Austin. Jewish kids went through a separate fraternity and sorority rush process than all the other students. We really didn't think much about it. If they did that today, our protests would have shut the school down. If there were any black or Hispanic students at the university, I did not see them. I went to law school at Texas and got married after the first year of law school. I had learned of the anti-Semitic practices of the major Houston law firms. They were the only large law firms in the state, and I had a long history of refusing to hire Jews. It wasn't a great time for women or minorities either. Of my class of 500 law students, there were 5 women and 2 African Americans. To my knowledge, there were no women or black lawyers in any firm of 10 or more lawyers in the entire state. In our graduation class, 3 of the top 5 students and the top 3 officers of the law review were Jewish. Since we knew we would not be hired by the Houston big firms, we went to school interviews with a few loaded questions. I asked one Houston interviewer why they didn't hire Jews. He responded that he didn't stay with the firm. Since they had not hired any Jews, I found it difficult to understand how they knew they would not stay. It turned out to my benefit, since I've avoided a horrible life in Houston. And ended up with a rewarding legal career for the last 58 years with a great group of lawyers in Dallas. And many of them are here today. However, the story does not end there. 2 wonderful upstanders finally put an end to the discriminatory practices of the major Houston firms. The year after the 3 of us graduated, Paige Keaton, the dean of the law school, and Judge Brown, the senior Texas judge of the 5th Circuit, summoned the major Houston law firms to a meeting. Dean Keaton informed the leaders of those firms that they would no longer be permitted to recruit at Texas if they did not hire its Jewish students. My two classmates took jobs with a major Houston firm. The next year, I got an inquiry but passed, since I already had a great job in Dallas. Discriminatory practices can be stopped if good people stand up and insist that they be stopped. Dallas was not perfect on the discrimination rating system. Its schools were totally segregated and unequal. Various clubs discriminated against women, minorities, and Jews. Slowly, these barriers have been removed, but still much remains to be done. I joined the museum board 28 years ago when I was young, when it was in the basement of the Jewish Community Center. The museum leadership had the dream to build a new, larger facility to reach more of our community. We inherited our incredible CEO, Mary Pat Higgins, in January 2013. I agree with that. We wouldn't have this museum without her, and started the capital campaign after she had time to get her feet on the ground the following February. We met with potential donors and discussed the importance of building a new museum and the impact it would have on students' attitude, tolerance, and behavior. We opened our new museum in 2019, the realization of that long-awaited dream. The number of visitors who have either participated in visits to the museum, accessed programs remotely, or engaged in activities in intensive school programs has grown from the 45,000 level in the JCC to over 210,000 this year. Now that the museum and the school systems are slowly recovering from the impacts of COVID, we can look forward to a greater impact on our students and our community. About 9 years ago, I was inspired to start taking asylum cases for immigrants fleeing violence in Central America. I am a business lawyer who has never tried a case and knows absolutely nothing about immigration law. But I figured that any lawyer who represents an asylum applicant is better than no lawyer. With my wonderful secretary of more than 25 years, Dorothy Ariano, who's here tonight, we represented women and children who are fleeing from abusive marital relationships and gang violence. With the able assistance of wonderful lawyers from my law firm, we tried 4 cases with favorable results and secured asylum or legal status for 12 women and children. We also recruited other lawyers in my firm and in other firms who have also rescued immigrants fleeing violence. Just as my parents left Europe for a better life, these asylum applicants fled their homes to save themselves and their children. I would have done the same thing if I had been in a similar circumstance. I want to thank the museum's incredible staff for all they've done to make this event successful. The museum relies on this event as its principal fundraiser to support its important mission. I thank our wonderful chairs, Lynn and Gil and Linda and Ken, and the members of the honorary and host committees and the large number of you who have made generous contributions to support the museum. For those of you who have not had that opportunity, We would be delighted if you would scan the QR codes at your table to make your donation. There are armed guards outside to prevent you from leaving, unless you can prove you've contributed. As many of you know, I had a little health issue last December while eating a not very good hamburger at Texas Stadium before the start of the Cowboy game. My aorta sprang a leak and I passed out. The Fort Worth surgeon contacted by the emergency room doctor said I would not likely survive and refused to take my case. I suspect he concluded that the world would be a better place with one less Dallasite. Fortunately, a fine Plano surgeon saved the day for me. The most ferocious patient advocate came to my aid with the excellent assistance of my children. My first and only girlfriend and wife of 60 years nursed me back to health. She is wonderful, but please don't tell her I said so. My only meaningful contribution to this community is the Schoenbrun rule. Charitable events must end by 9 p.m. So thank you again for your wonderful support of the museum. Thank you. Go home.